Everyone, my name is Koehler, and we are here to talk about how CBD can spice up your sex life.
You are now listening to Cannabruhz. Hey, what's up? What's up?
Well,
hey guys.
Welcome back, of course, talking about sex and CBD, how CBD can spice up your sex life. Before we go any further, make sure that you stay tuned until the end. We have a special surprise for you that you don't want to miss out on. So let's get into it. First thing, let's tackle common misconceptions. We're talking common misconceptions about sex and CBD with Kim K.
So what are some common misconceptions when it comes to sex and CBD?
Well, I mean, there's kind of two separate things. First of all, in regards to sex, sex is so male focused. Just to kind of give you an idea, like you can advertise for Viagra and those types of things, but anytime you try to focus on advertising for something that gives women pleasure, it's completely just cut out right away. So there's so much focus on this because there are a lot of men that have sexual dysfunction, but there's even a larger amount of women that have sexual dysfunction. And whereas men, if it's not working, you can't really hide that. Versus with women, you know, women can be dealing with all kinds of issues like pain or discomfort or lack of sensation, inability to climax. And unfortunately, since it is so easy to hide or so easy to fake or whatever it is, there's not a lot of attention given to it versus when it comes to men, like there's so much focus on making sure that these men like feel strong and they feel powerful. People relate the ability to perform in the bedroom to like power, especially in regards to men. So like, which it's kind of sad too, because people will make fun of a guy for not being well endowed or that kind of thing. And that's something that they can't help. And it doesn't have any impact really on how powerful they are as a person. It's just what they were born with. And that's kind of the sad thing about that with men as well. And also there is just a lot of pressure on men to perform. So if a man can't perform, they just go and get a prescription for a pill. But women, on the other hand, their issues are really brushed on the rug, which is, you know, what I experienced personally in my own life.
And then I've even seen where even some women are contributing to this same like toxic like idea that's been put out through the media about, you know, women and what they should be or what it should be. And it's all like geared towards the pleasure of males. And what happens is once you get into, you know, real relationships or long-term relationships or you age or whatnot, then you start to realize that, hey, that's bullshit. You know, like that's not literally how it actually works when you care about the person. You know, when you actually want to make sure that person is having a good time and they're happy and they're joyous and, you know, and just simply, you know, having fun like you're having fun.
I agree with everything you're saying. And it's like, especially when it comes to just today's culture and you listen to the music and, you know, it's all about like, you know, I did this, I did that. You know, when Gerald and I was in college, we've been around a lot of different people, a lot of different environments. And, you know, you hear the stories of some of your peers or some of the people that just around are like, yeah, man, but let me tell you about what happened last night. And then they just like, you know, I wore her out. I broke the bed. You know, I broke her back. You know, like they really go into the detail. And again, it's a I'm beating my chest. I'm showing you how popular, how cool I am, how dominant I am.
And there's a good chance she was probably faking for all, or at least a few of those too.
Well, so. Right, it's true. It's true. It's nothing crazier. There's nothing more shocking to the ego than literally going straight to the source of the ego, right? Which is, you know, not this head, right? So going straight to the source of the ego. When you say, hey, she wasn't actually having a good time. She just wanted to make sure you were happy.
Yeah, women are so focused on, I feel like a majority of women in the bedroom, they're so focused on feeding the male's ego that they forget to focus on their own pleasure. And it's like, when did it happen that people were like, okay, I'm going to fake it just to make him feel good and then you're just not enjoying yourself anymore. It's so common. And I feel like males masculinity, it's so fragile in a lot of people that has made such an impact on people being able to enjoy it. I've experienced that for myself, like being with someone who he's like, oh, it's never taken so long for me to make someone come or whatever. Like, what's wrong with you, basically? And then you start to like doubt yourself, like, oh my gosh, is there something wrong with me? And then from that point on in the relationship, like, you know, I basically started faking it because I was just so afraid of hurting his ego and then it turning into this bad time where he'd like make me feel guilty about myself or, you know, what's wrong with you? But the truth was, like, it's because he couldn't last long. And I'm not trying to, like, you know, diss on people who can't last a long time in the bedroom, because you can have a very nice connected sexual relationship, even if it's not like a 4-hour Pound Town session or whatever. You know, you can have these smaller sessions consecutively throughout the night where it can still be really intimate and loving and pleasurable for both people. Like, there's not a specific way that sex should look. They kind of look at things in the wrong way. Like, okay, if a girl is not wet or if a guy is not hard, that has something to do with their actual deep down sexuality. And it's really, nothing could be further from the truth. There's all kinds of reasons why sometimes, you know, the penis isn't functioning, or why someone's not wet, or why someone's having pain, or whatever it may be. Has nothing to do with the actual true sexuality of someone in their mind, because there's a physical sexuality and then there's a spiritual and the mental sexuality in people, and they're all connected. But if you're putting too much pressure on one of them, then, you know, you can't really have the most fulfilling sex life that you should be able to. And CBD kind of helps with, you really, honestly, all of those different aspects in different ways. And I think that that's something that we're here to talk about today, is how CBD can help, you know, kind of fill in those gaps and kind of pull it all together.
And, you know, it's two things I want to mention off of that. One, to go to Pound Town, as you said, the amount of cardio and stamina you have to have is like an Olympian, you know?
Yeah. And Corey, that's the thing, man. You know, so the crazy thing is the things that are put out there is not close to what's actually happening in real life. And that's what happens too, you know, as men, especially in our younger days, right? We first are introduced to porn, right? We're introduced to porn, and that warps our minds. So we start thinking women's bodies it's not even valuable if it doesn't look like this, or, you know, size of the breasts, the dimensions of the hips, and all this kind of stuff like that. From entertainment to real life, there's something that's lost in translation, you know?
Throughout my life, and I'm sure a lot of other people feel the same way, it's like you thought you were doing things the right way, as you were saying, Jarrell. You know, well, I saw it on that flick, so, and she was enjoying it on the flick, so I did that same thing, and I know she felt that, right? But and then you have that conversation, and I think that's where the intimacy piece comes in, because you had a conversation with a long-term girlfriend and or your wife, right? And now it's not like I'm doing everything necessarily to please you. It's like, no, like, you know, after a while as guys, you know, we're gonna say, so what you think? Like is there any, you know, hey, is there anything I can improve on, right? But and even if you're asking that to hear her say no, so you can again stroke your ego, and she's like, well, you know, since you're asking, you know, insert here, you know, I actually don't like that, and I've never liked it.
And that's the thing. The toxic thing is the idea of keeping up a lie. You know, it's not going to be good for anyone. Like when he finds out that you've been lying the entire time, and now that was when we were 15, and now we're 30. You know, like we've been together this entire time, and I just found out the truth. And now I'm older, so most likely I'm more stubborn. And now I don't. You know, he's less likely to actually fix those issues, but it's taught like at every age level.
It's so true. And that's why it's so important to, even from the beginning, you need to go into it with open communication, which can be really scary because you don't want to hurt their ego. So using more things like positive affirmations, I found to be more successful in my sex life versus saying, oh, I don't really like that. You can move their hand, or you can really like encourage them. You're doing a great job. Like, I love when you do this versus, you know, I really don't want you to do that. So you can do it in a tactful way. You can't start out by pretending like everything is amazing, you know, but you also don't have to be cruel about it. But that's what happens is people aren't honest about it in the beginning. And then 5 years later, they're like, I hate when you do that tap thing. And then like, where did you learn that? It's so fun. I'm in these like girls group where they're like, okay, what are the most annoying things that guys do in bed? And like, you should see some of those. I mean, they're private groups for a reason, but some of the things are just like so funny. And you can kind of tell depending on who you're with, you can tell, oh, they watch this kind of that kind of thing, just by the way that they act with you. So it's definitely interesting. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I think it's kind of it's limiting us as people, right? You want to enjoy life to really enjoy life, every aspect of it. And of course, sexually, of course, right? And that's the thing, it's limiting all of us. Like, if you're not going to do any better unless you know better, you know, it's kind of like, how much, you know, so it's damaging to everybody. It never works. So, you know, that's what we're here to do, is kind of get rid of those common misconceptions. And kind of, you know, throw those out in the trash. It's 2022, and going forward, we need to have a certain amount of awareness. But people have questions. Kim.
Let's hear
it. So we, of course, did our market research. Thanks to the amazing, you know, Cannabruhz people out there. We appreciate you all being able to have those conversations and direct messages and all that kind of stuff. So we have a couple that we have the lovely Kim K to be able to help us, you know, get rid of that and know better. So here's one. Why use CBD in the bedroom specifically?
Okay, so there's a couple different ways. Like I was talking about earlier, how you have like your physical sexuality, you have your spiritual sexuality, your mental sexuality, that type of thing. So it can help in a couple different aspects. One for me is I used to have extreme pain during sex, and I won't get into details of that today, but my doctors, they prescribed numbing medication for me. And I'm like, okay, that's so great. Like, I'm just going to be numb for sex. And I mean, I'm faking it anyway. Why not? At least I can tolerate it. But that was my options, was like numbing gels and creams, and then pelvic physical therapy. And I was way too embarrassed to do that because I grew up very traditional, very religious. So I was like, I'm just going to, you know, continue using this numbing stuff until the end of time. And that was the only thing that would help me tolerate it. So there hasn't really been a solution. I knew that I wanted to get into the cannabis industry. Being from Colorado, I did see a lot of people become very successful with it. So I've always been really creative. I wanted to just like use cannabis to help women's issues. And when I found out about the anti-inflammatory properties of CBD, I was like, wow, you know, this could be really great because it's not a numbing product, but it just helps with how the signals are transmitted in your brain, like the pain receptors and that type of thing. It also can help with the actual inflammation when it's topical. So I was like, why can't I make some sort of a product that I can infuse with this that can help with the pain without numbing the pleasurable sensations? So I started experimenting. I hired a female chemist out of Boulder to start working on formulas that had just the right amount, not, you know, using too much just to make it more expensive or whatever. And we came up with a formula to help with the anti-inflammatory properties. So in regards to making sex less uncomfortable for people, there's that aspect of the CBD. Then there is the mental aspect where even after my issues were healed and I was better and I no longer had painful sex, I had so much sexual anxiety from my previous relationship because he was the one that was like you know, oh, why aren't you climaxing fast enough or whatever? Or he would get extremely upset if I ever touched myself or whatever. So I was always like afraid. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm able to experience sex now without pain, but my brain was just like, oh my gosh. And, you know, still back into like that whole faking it thing. Right. I ended up I bought a tincture at a dispensary downtown Denver, and it was a high CBD, low THC, because THC, it actually kind of triggers my anxiety for some reason. Some people have that. So I didn't really love the feeling of being high, but I decided to take this tincture, and that night was the first time in literally years that I was able to experience totally pleasurable sex without feeling insecure at all about my body or about any of it. And I was able to actually have an orgasm. And I was like, oh my gosh, like my body is capable of this. This is crazy. And I was like, wow, this is absolutely amazing. And so I highly recommend it for people that are having any kind of sexual anxiety. There's also a lot of performance anxiety for men as well. So I feel like CBD can be helpful for that as well, for men and women in regards to that. So that's kind of how CBD on the physical aspect for the anti-inflammatory properties, and also the blood circulating qualities of CBD. So it can increase blood flow. So all around, it's just like, it's like the holy grail, because it helps fight pain and discomfort, and it also increases pleasure. So yeah.
With all these amazing effects that it has for sexual intimacy, when done right, why isn't it spoken about more often?
Well, I mean, first of all, as we all know, being in the cannabis industry, it's extremely hard to, you can't advertise really. You can't advertise. Not only can you not advertise just cannabis in general, marijuana really, except for in like print ads and a few other little things, but you don't get like a pop-up on your Facebook, like, oh, pop into this dispensary for whatever. Right. So, and then also in regards to the sexual side of things, you can't really advertise sexual products either. So even if you avoid disclosing right off the bat in the ad, oh, this has cannabis in it, if you're talking about sex, they're like, oh no, this is like not allowed. So a lot of it just has to do with censorship. So it is really going to take like a force of people, you know, like an army of advocates and people whose lives has changed, like mine, for example, to really go out there and educate the masses, and like word of mouth, like, oh my gosh, this really helped me. Or if I hear of someone, they just had a baby and they've been having a lot of discomfort, I'll be like, oh, here, have some of this, and this could help. So yeah, I mean, really, it just comes down to censorship, sex and cannabis. If it's not one, it's the other.
Another question that we have is, will using CBD infused products make males last longer? The burning question.
Sure. Oh man, if only it were that simple to answer. With CBD on the mental aspect, if they're having a lot of anxiety, and sometimes that's why there's the premature ejaculation, that kind of thing, because they're like, oh my God, or oh, it's finally happening. So kind of taking that edge off a little bit, like I don't see why it couldn't help with that. Kind of the same way that the alcohol can help you relax a little bit, but without all that brain fog and that kind of thing. So, but when applying topically, this is a very, very common misconception when they look at like my intimate oils and that kind of thing. They'll be like, oh, well, obviously, you know, this is going to like numb the penis or whatever. And they're like, maybe it'll make them last long. That's not the case, because it's not a numbing effect. People associate like, okay, I'm not going to feel pain. That must mean it's numbing me. But that's a beautiful thing about it. So it's not numbing. So in regards to that, actually the like chemistry of applying a topical product, that won't have an effect on how long that you can last. But I do have like a tincture a tantric tincture. It's like an aphrodisiac one that has like B3, which is niacin. It's a vasodilator. It can kind of open up the capillaries in the body. B12 for energy. And then there's different terpenes that have been shown to kind of be aphrodisiacs over the years, along with the CBD for like mentally relaxing you. And obviously like we don't have FDA approval and all these clinical trials on it actually helping make or like give an erection. But my main formulator, she did studies with multiple different men, and it actually, in at least these particular men, it did make a difference in being able to obtain and actually hold an erection. But I can't, claim that this does it. It could be a coincidence, but we've had some very successful studies done.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And it always helps as well, just when your partner is pleased, it helps you as well, because it's a bigger, we may think we've seen it before, her really enjoy sex before, but what if she really hasn't been enjoying sex and now she, picks up Privy Peach products, for example, and she begins to truly experience in an authentic way what it means to enjoy sex. Now he's seeing it not on a film, he's not seeing it in an authentic way. Now he's literally seeing the real thing, and it may excite the man as well, just in that way of being able to be close to it and be within an experience where you're like, man, this is real, and you can really feel and connect with your partner.
Yeah.
So.
I do want to go back and talk about one thing where we were talking about the misconceptions of like sexuality and that type of thing. So I cannot tell you how many times I've been like at a trade show or a speaking engagement or something like that. And I'm like, oh, do you want a sample or whatever of the erotic oil? And they're like, oh, I don't have any issues with that. Or, oh, she doesn't need that. Like, she's already wet. And I'm like, okay, that's not the point. That's not the point.
Right.
I'm like, what if I told you that you could apply a 2-second topical application and you can completely intensify your orgasm or her orgasm? Wouldn't you be interested in trying that? Like, I mean, come on. And it's not, and that's why people are like, oh, I don't need that yet. I'm not old enough. Or people also associate like sexual dysfunction in men as being something when they're older. Right. I've actually had more issues with a few of the younger men, like in their early 30s, versus some of the older guys that I've been with who have had no issues whatsoever. And I think part of it comes down to, until you reach a certain age, men are like too embarrassed. They're like, oh, I don't actually have ED. So I've had guys be like, you're the only person this has ever happened with. I don't know why I can't get hard or whatever. Right. And they put it back on you because they can't be like, oh, maybe I just should see my doctor. Like, there's no shame in that. And that's what's so sad to me is all the shame and stuff that's put on men where they like, oh yeah, he can't get hard, or oh, he has a small dick or whatever. That's just so, I've also been with guys who have big dicks who don't know how to use it. Like I know they say like size doesn't matter or whatever, but there is a lot of truth to that. And same thing with like, girls being wet or not being wet. It doesn't have to do with a performance thing. So it's like exploring options to boost your pleasure, whether you're wet or not, and not being afraid to incorporate new things to try to, just enhance things in general.
Yeah.
So I got a question. I've encountered people where they've said like they smoke weed before having sex, or people is like, oh, you got to try like popping ecstasy and then having sex, right? But they say the thing with that is once you do it on that substance, it takes away from regular sex, right? Have any experience with that, or what's your take on that?
Okay, so it depends on which product you're using, because obviously there's a lot of people who use my products to help with the discomfort aspect. And, like I've gone on a trip before and sometimes I'll have discomfort if you have a long weekend, with your significant other or whatever. By the end, you're like, oh my gosh, like this is painful. I really need my Privy Peach stuff. So there are people who have chronic issues And like I used to export a lot to Canada. I had a huge loyalty in Canada, and I started having issues exporting. And unfortunately, I had to cut off exporting to Canada 2 years ago. I'm hoping to get back over there. But there's one man in particular where he's like, please help me. Like, the only way my wife will have sex with me is with your products, because she can't. We've tried everything else. There's nothing else that helps. And so like I feel for these people that just don't have a lot of options. But so yeah, I mean, if people can't heal their bodies with like the pelvic physical therapy or whatever, some of their issues aren't from something that can be healed. Yeah, people are going to be like, I'm going to need to use this or want to use this.
I would like to think that you learned something through these amazing experiences that you take over, even if it's in technique, even if it's in just opening up yourself up to different possibility and you knowing what it feels like, you know?
Yeah. So like I was saying earlier, when I had taken that CBD THC tincture, you know, 5 years ago or whatever it was, and I was able to start experiencing actually being able to climax in that. Now that I kind of got used to that, I don't need that anymore because my sexual anxiety is completely gone.
Right.
So I do not, I don't need to take that before sex at all anymore. Like I have zero sexual anxiety at this point, which is really, really great, because I did not know that that was something I would be able to ever overcome.
Yeah. Sex fun.
Having such a powerful, impactful brand and being in two high-risk, male-dominant industries, what kind of obstacles have you encountered in your journey?
Oh my goodness gracious. So, I mean, so how much time do we have left? I will talk about a couple of the key ones.
Okay.
So obviously banking is always very difficult. You know, I've been like blacklisted from PayPal, from Venmo. I finally got a personal Venmo after years of not being able to have one. I got kicked out of Chase Bank. I got kicked out of several credit card processing. I got my Shopify account shut down. Just like so many different things. So the banking is really hard, even though CBD is completely legalized when it's derived from hemp and when it goes through all this testing. And I adhere to all of that, and still there's all of these issues. You know, I've had TikToks taken down just by using the word CBD. I've had all sorts of like, I'm completely blacklisted from advertising on Facebook for all of, I own multiple companies. I have 4 companies right now. And I can't even advertise for my like photography studio, for example, you know, cause I'm just like, I don't know, they have my IP address or whatever. So I can't advertise. And then in regards to the male dominated space, I've had so many issues of people coming to me and saying that they're really interested in the business, and they're not at all. Like they end up like, oh, actually, like, I want to get in your pants, you know. I full on was on the way to a business meeting before for a potential partnership with someone who was very high up there in the CBD space. And as I was driving to the meeting, he was like, are we going to make out? And I was like, are you kidding me? And so I obviously did not go to the meeting. And so it was dragged on for a long time, you know, and there have just been so many instances like this where they seem interested in the brand, but they're really not. So it's trying to navigate that type of thing, or people just saying, like, I'm very lighthearted and easygoing in regards to sex, as you all can tell, but it doesn't mean that people can just be so forward. It's definitely been hard being able to separate out the good intentions of people and the people that have bad intentions. So yeah, being a woman in this space is hard.
Yeah. So. Yeah, we get it.
So hard. No, just kidding.
Yeah. And, you know, you mentioned Privy Peach. I know we've kind of brought it up, and of course they see it on the screen. Can you tell us like a little bit more about how you got started as far as this 4th business, right? As far as Privy Peach is concerned, tell us a little bit more about your background, how you got started as far as Privy Peach, and, you know, what are you looking to build with it?
Sure. So I have always been a very caring person. I've always wanted to give back to the community. I was very involved in church growing up and in college, went to Bible college, got a theology degree. I've always been really creative. My first company I started, I was 22 years old, and I opened up a really beautiful photography studio in downtown Littleton, in Colorado. And within the first 2 years, I already had a staff of somewhere around 10 people, multiple interns, became the third largest studio in the state. I was very successful. People would always come in and be like, oh, can I talk to your owner? I'm like, I'm the owner. And they're like, what? Like, my employees were like in their 40s, and here's this 22-year-old kid, you know? Mm-hmm. So I was self-taught. I taught myself Photoshop, graphic design, all of that, learned about advertising, marketing. So I got that business up and running. It did really well. Several years later, I decided to kind of downsize and kind of change the way I operated things. So I read The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss.
Yeah.
You might want to link to that because, oh my gosh, that book totally changed my life. So I rearranged how I did everything. So I started making a lot more money and working way, way, way less. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you know, it might be kind of fun to try my hand at getting a real job just for fun, because I didn't really need it, but I was like, well, why not? So I got a job at a cannabis marketing agency as a project manager. Okay. And I started learning a lot about cannabis. And I was like, oh my gosh, I saw the need for women's targeted brands because it was very male dominated. And the female brands coming out just had like pink packaging on them. But I'm like, this is the same exact vape as like the green one or whatever. It's just $2 more. It's like the pink tax or whatever. So I was like, I want to start a cannabis company that is women targeted, that actually targets women's issues. So I'm like, what are some of women's issues? We've obviously got, you know, we have the PMS thing, which cannabis can help with that because of inflammation, mood. And then sex was a big one for me because I had dealt with the chronic pain during sex for so many years. And I decided, you know, this is really what I want to do. I want to help people that have pain during sex because there's no one helping women with this really. So that's kind of how Privy Peach was born. And I didn't want to just be known for the intimate products. So I actually first launched the bath and body products, like vegan and orgasmic.
And bath products?
Vegan and organic, you know, like lip gloss and body butters and stuff. So I'm like, people wouldn't go out and wear like a KY jelly shirt for the most part, but you know, I'm like, if I start something else, it's like more of a, just a whole brand identity and more of a lifestyle brand. People would go out and wear cute Privy Peach stuff because it could be bath bombs. It could be this kind of thing. So I launched all those first, started building some brand awareness through Instagram before I was shadow banned. So my followings grow really slow because I'm shadow banned still. So please follow Privy Peach's Instagram. Yes. So I was getting basically all of my business off of that. So I started building that up, and then I slowly started releasing the intimate products that were helping with the discomfort. And then I was like, let's kick this up a notch and also create some products that boost sensation. And those were my absolute favorites. And then I moved into last year. I launched the first completely all natural CBD infused intimate products that were condom compatible.
Very nice.
So there were a couple, there's not very many on the market because CBD is oil, which can degrade latex. But I worked with formulations expert for a very long time, went through multiple rounds of revisions, and then finally released a condom compatible product, 2 of them, a sensation booster, and then one that helps with discomfort. That one's called Relief. And I actually won the Innovative Product Award in Vegas last year, and I was up against about 450 other brands that were not just CBD. So that was like a very big highlight in my life, was winning that award. And so I've just been kind of going from there. And the focus is definitely the sexual health and wellness products, but yeah, it's all about that lifestyle, just helping empower people to enjoy their lives sexually, or, you know, whether it's skincare or just general well-being, which is why I'm kind of moving it also into the mushroom space a little bit.
Very nice.
But yeah, so it's definitely been a journey. It's been really fun.
That's awesome. That is an amazing story. You know, your journey is, you know, I know you made it sound so effortless and everything.
Right.
There's a lot of, right? Doesn't it sound so effortless, Corey, when she says it in that way? But I know it's been so much work. And you mentioned just, you know, being able to empower others, you know, with that, you know, looking to empower and encourage other women. What advice would you have to help encourage other women who are looking to get into, you know, both maybe the sex industry products, sex products, or CBD, or both, you know, and kind of follow after your path?
Sure. I mean, I think that being realistic with your expectations, going into it knowing that it is not going to be a cakewalk. And there's a reason why there's not a lot of successful CBD brands. There's not a lot of long-standing ones. There's not a lot of women-owned brands that make it past that first year, 2 years. I'm going into it's been over 4 years now since I started. I'm really grateful and proud of that. But not giving up, and also standing your ground, because I sold half of my company for a couple months right before COVID. Did not work out. It turns out I do not like being told what to do. I bought my half back. Very expensive lesson learned. About 6 months in, regained total control, and now I'm like back in the driver's seat. But it's like trusting your gut too, because my gut was like, don't do this, but they were kind of persistent, so I did that. That was probably the most expensive lesson learned, was like letting go of control of something that I knew that I shouldn't be letting control of. So staying in the driver's seat when it seems so much easier to just hop into the passenger seat because someone is giving you all these promises. Stay in the driver's seat. Stay the star in your own show. Like, don't give that up. If you are already the star, there's a difference between delegating, which is important in a successful business, delegating tasks out, and giving up that position that keeps your vision where you want it to go, that keeps your path straight, you know? So not giving up.
So
do not give up.
With you having such a successful business over the past 4 years and overcoming so many obstacles to get to where you are today, what next, or what is next for Privy Peach?
So in the very near future, I've been working for about 9 months on getting my products back over into Mexico. I was in Mexico for a little while. It was very well received, but it's a very tricky country to get into.
Okay.
So that is very strongly on the agenda. We've been working on all the permits. So I'm hoping we're going to really expand in Mexico, and then also down into South and Central America over the next 2 years. I also am working on releasing a new product, which I have not announced yet, that people are going to love. It's another intimate product on the Privy Peach side that has a new, really interesting ingredient in it. Hopefully that will be released here within the next 3 months or so. And so just continuing to innovate and listen to what people want.
Right. And Kim, where can they actually reach out to you? Where can they get some of these amazing products like the erotic intimate oil and other products that you have on the Privy Peach product line?
Yeah, so everything is available and legal to be shipped across all state lines because of all the testing and being derived from hemp. So you can buy it at privypeach.com. Also, it's carried in several hundred, maybe close to 1,000 sex shops now across the United States. So you can always check your local shop to see if they carry it. And if they don't, you should tell them that they should. But the website's great. That's your fastest route unless you have a local place that you could pop into. But the website's perfect. Yeah.
Oh, speaking of the website, we actually have that surprise, Corey. We got that surprise for all of our, viewers right now who are watching and listening to what we have going on.
Okay.
We have Kim has blessed us. Privy Peach has blessed us and our audience with an amazing discount code. The discount code is going to be Cannabruhz 10. Okay, we're going to make sure we put that up on the screen. That's right. Put it up on the screen for you guys. We're going to put it in the description down below. So make sure you check it out. Yeah, put it in the description now.
Put it in.
So click on the description. Click on the link in the description down below. We're also going to make sure we state that discount code. But that's, again, Cannabruhz 10. So you can receive 10% off. That's right. How much, Corey? I was going to say not one, but 10% off of your order. So thank you, Kim. Thank you so much for, of course, joining us today on Plug Talk.
Thanks, everybody, for hopping in and staying tuned. Hopefully you learned a lot about sex and CBD and how to spice up your sex life.